everybody struggles with to various degrees, and it's certainly at certain times in life when, life happens,
right.
Death happens. Part of it is the language we use, and then part of it is talking about it. So when you say mental health, typically what comes to mind for most people is mental illness, right? So they think about people with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder or people who are suicidal. Like, they go to the extreme end of mental illness, which is one end of it, and it's very real, and yes. And that is a small percentage of most of us humans walking around. At the other end of that spectrum is sort of like peak mental performance, right? If you think about mental wellness and mental performance. And then in the middle of that bell curve is where most of us reside. I like to think of it as mental wellness, right? The same as you're describing with your body. Like, what are the things that we can do to keep ourselves healthy and vibrant? And it's not because we're ill or sick. It's just because we want to feel more healthy and vibrant, and we want our minds to work well, and we want our emotions to work well, because that makes all our relationships work better and makes everything just feel better. So part of it is languaging, is being really clear about what we're talking about. We're not talking about mental illness for most of us. We're talking about mental wellness, to think about it in those terms, and then to talk about it. And so I really appreciate you bringing up the question. Everybody struggles with to various degrees, and it's certainly at certain times in life when, life happens, death happens. People leave and people don't do what they say they were going to do, and all the things that happen. That if we have a way to just talk about that and say, this is going on for me, this is my experience, and get rid of this, like, I grew up in the UK, right? So the British culture, there's this whole thing about having a stiff upper lip, which I'm not translating to American, but it's the same thing, like this sort of cultural veneer that everything's fine, there's no problems, I got this, which we've all grown up with, and is really damaging. It keeps us separate from each other, and it keeps us separate from ourselves. It keeps us from acknowledging, hey, actually, no, I got really hurt when you said that thing, or when this thing happened, I felt angry or felt frustrated. And to acknowledge it, because otherwise we're separating our minds from our bodies, which is another version of separation, right? These emotions happen in our bodies, not in our minds. We feel them. I feel it in my gut, or I feel it in my hands start to sweat, or whatever it is. And to have that stance of like, oh, that's not happening, no, I'm fine, cuts us off from ourselves, stops us being fully who we are. And when we allow ourselves to drop that and say, okay, yeah, there's something happening in my stomach right now when you said that. What is that? I'm feeling hurt. I'm feeling disappointed. Can I put a word to it? And then can I start to explore what other thoughts I have that are attached to it, and what is it triggering from my past? And you can start to get into understanding it. Then you're understanding yourself much more, so you have a much greater self-awareness of who am I and how do I operate in the world, and what are the cultural systems that I'm running that cause me to behave in certain ways. And then if you do that in conversation, whether it's with your therapist, with a counselor, with a friend, with your partner, with whoever, now you know me more. And if you do that too, then I know you more, and we share our own vulnerability and create a much deeper connection than we would have previously had when we were walking around saying, oh, everything's fine, no problem.
Thanks for listening to the Adrian Sinclair Show. You can find previous episodes on the Apodcast multi-channel network at apodcast.com. You can also stream this podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Podbean, and other audio platforms. And if you subscribe to our weekly newsletter, you'll get convenient short summaries of podcasts you may have missed. So check it out. And lastly, please support us by sharing our episodes on social media. We really appreciate it. Thanks.